Kevrin. Seven was dead, but it remembered. The surface of the ruined world shimmered under a pearlescent sky, where fractured moons hung motionless, suspended like broken thoughts. Glassy fields stretched from horizon to horizon, the product of plasma bombardment that had fused stone and soil into mirrors. In the center of this graveyard stood the last functioning structure, a shattered observatory, its spire cracked but defiant against the windless stillness. Rylus Thorne arrived alone. No uniform, no armor, no guards, just a breath in his chest and a pulse heavy with consequence. He stepped carefully across the glazed surface, his reflection broken and multiplied with each stride. There were no animals, no wind, no sounds. The silence was complete and hostile. She was waiting for him. Iliari Chara stood beneath the observatory's arch, arms folded across her chest, the translucent filaments of her cloak catching the dim violet light. Her face, once soft with diplomacy, was now rigid with calculation. Her eyes, those haunting dual pupils of the Zereth, watched him not as an enemy, but as something worse, a failing equation. He stopped 5 paces from her. Neither extended a greeting. "You came," she said. "I had to," he answered. They stood there, the ghost of a war flickering between them. After a long silence, Iliari turned and gestured toward a collapsed console behind her. She retrieved a compact sphere from a pouch at her side and activated it. A cascade of light and sound unfolded, revealing a holographic lattice. Neurons, thought maps, consciousness pathways. "This is the core of the last memory," she said quietly. "It won't just erase your people from records. It will rip your species out of sentient recall. Cultures won't remember. Machines won't translate your names. Genetic markers would dissolve into noise." Rylus flinched. "That's not justice. That's annihilation of truth." "You burned our world," she replied flatly. "What justice exists after that?" He didn't argue. There was no defense. "I didn't come to debate," he said. "I came to offer an alternative." Iliari arched one brow. "You think words can undo what's already been encoded across 10,000 minds? You think guilt stops entropy?" "No," Rylus said, stepping forward. "But understanding might." She said nothing, so he continued. "We have a fail-safe," he said, "a neurotrigger, buried in Earth's quantum net. If the Dominion detects the last memory's activation, it will trigger a final wave. Omega Protocol. Every Terran ship, station, and archive collapses into singularity. Controlled destruction. You'll erase us, and we'll take the core of this galaxy's infrastructure with us. No more hyperlanes. No more trade relays. No more network mines." Iliari stared at him, the meaning sinking into her slowly, terribly. "A dead man switch," she whispered. "Something like that," he replied. "The wind picked up then, weak but real. A shift in atmosphere systems, maybe, or a sign the world itself was listening." "You blackmail me with extinction," she said. "Impressive. You've learned to speak like the Dominion." Rylus's voice cracked. "I don't want any of this. I want to stop it, but I've run out of clean options." Iliari looked away, scanning the horizon. "You were supposed to be different." "I was," he said, "and you were supposed to believe peace was possible." For a long time, neither spoke. Then she reached into her cloak and retrieved a second sphere. This one glowed a faint blue, pulsing like a heartbeat. She held it out to him. "This is a fragment of the shared memory net," she said. "It carries our ancestral emotions. Not facts, not tactics, feelings." Rylus took it. The surface hummed against his palm. "If I link this to your neural input," she said, "you'll feel what I feel, what my people felt. The loss, the betrayal, the centuries of tension we swallowed for the sake of hope. And in return," he asked, "you give me yours," she said. "Let me feel your war, your fear, your guilt." It was madness, dangerous, likely irreversible. But it was connection, the one thing missing from every speech, treaty, and weapon between them. Rylus nodded. They each placed a finger on their own devices, and then pressed them together. A light exploded between them. It wasn't pain, but it was too much, too vast. Rylus gasped as thousands of sensations poured into him. Mother's lullabies beneath crystal trees, the sting of betrayal during failed alliances, the suffocating grief of Eleron's last breath. He felt the Zera soul, ancient collective, wounded. At the same time, Eliari staggered under the weight of Terran memory. Sirens in scorched cities, children born in war bunkers, the final message of a dying diplomat at Virex 9, begging for peace that never came. They collapsed, he on one knee, she against the observatory wall, hearts racing, minds cracked open. The transfer had lasted only seconds, but the silence after it stretched into eternity. Finally, Eliari spoke, voice no longer rigid. "I didn't understand," she said. "I thought you were machines wearing skin. And I thought your grief was pride in disguise," he replied. They stood. The horizon remained scorched. Nothing had changed, and yet something had. Eliari deactivated the last memory sphere. "I'll delay the ritual," she said. "But the others won't wait forever. I'll stop the Omega Protocol," Rylus promised, "if I live long enough." They stared at each other, two haunted silhouettes under the broken sky. "Then we buy time," Eliari said, "and pray memory is stronger than hatred." And in that moment, surrounded by the shattered remains of two great civilizations, they made the smallest, most fragile peace ever forged. But it was real, and it was theirs. The last summit was held in the void, not on a planet nor a station, but aboard the Cradle of Silence, a neutral structure drifting far from any star, older than both the Terran Dominion and the Zera Confederacy. It had no allegiance, no weapons, and no record of origin. It was chosen precisely because it felt like the last place in the galaxy that still remembered what neutrality meant. Rylus Thorn stood alone at one end of the chamber, his boots echoing on ancient obsidian floors. The cradle's walls pulsed with slow, internal light, like the deep breaths of a sleeping beast. On the opposite side, Eliari Chara emerged, her robes darker now, edged with silver threads of mourning. She walked with purpose, but her steps were slower, the burden of compromise weighing heavily. They did not speak at first. There was nothing left to be said that hadn't already been offered in silence. A projection lit the center of the chamber, a galactic map, flickering with the damage. Over half the major relay systems were gone. Trade routes reduced to dust. 37 core worlds obliterated. Billions vanished. The last memory had not been triggered. The Omega Protocol remained dormant. But the war had done it to racing already, in spirit if not in code. Juno Kale's voice crackled into Rylus's earpiece. Earth High Command just issued an ultimatum. If you sign this peace accord, they'll strip your rank and exile you. Possibly worse. He didn't respond. He only shut off the channel. Eliari watched him carefully. They fear the idea of surrender. They always have, he replied. They built an empire on the illusion that humanity was the galaxy's climax. Anything less than dominance feels like extinction. She tilted her head, the glow of the map dancing across her skin. "And what do you feel?" He took a step closer. "I feel like if we don't finish what we started at Kevrin 7, then everything we did there dies with us." Silence passed again, heavy as gravity. Then the chamber shifted. A hidden dais rose from the floor between them, revealing two interfaces, one organic, one artificial. Symbols glowed. The Zera sigil of remembrance, the Terran glyph for pact. "This will not stop the war entirely," Eliari said, eyes on the dais. "There are those among my kind who believe I've grown soft, that I've touched too much human grief. I'm no hero to my people either," Rylus said. "Most of them want blood, not balance." They looked at one another then, not as enemies, not even as diplomats, but as the final echoes of what might have been. "Then let this be for the ones who do remember," Eliari said, laying her hand on the interface. "For those whose names were not lost." Rylus placed his hand beside hers. The chamber responded. Threads of light wove around them, reading not their credentials, but their intentions. The Cradle of Silence was ancient beyond understanding. It didn't recognize borders or fleets. Only truth, only memory. A tone rang out, clear, resonant. The pact was accepted. In that instant, both felt a shift, not in politics or power, but in the shape of grief itself. It no longer crushed. It breathed, and yet the galaxy beyond remained fractured. As they left the chamber, news filtered in. The Terran Dominion rejected the pact. Earth's fleet had dispatched a new command ship, the Vindicator, to retake the narrative. The Zereth Inner Council had fractured, with factions accusing Iliari of diluting blood memory with Terran despair. Assassination orders were whispered. They had succeeded and failed within the same breath. On board the shuttle returning from the cradle, Juno waited for Rylus. "They won't let you go home," she said quietly. "Then I won't go home," he answered. "I'll go where I'm needed." "Where's that?" He looked out the viewport toward the dark swell of stars, where memory still exists. On the other side of the galaxy, Iliari stood beneath the spiraling dreamroot trees of a hidden Zereth sanctuary. The roots glowed, drawing stories from the soil. She placed a single crystal, a Terran child's voice recording salvage from Kevrin 7, into the offering bowl. The roots accepted it. For the first time, the ancestral network sang with a human tone. The galaxy had not healed, but now it remembered. And perhaps that was how the erasure would finally end.